the Ricoh GR3X HDF. I wanted to like this camera so bad, I really did, but it wasn't exactly what I expected. I've been using the Ricoh GR3X and the GR3 for over a year and a half now, and it's a truly pocketable everyday camera as opposed to something like the X100VI or the X100V, which only kind of fits in like a sweatshirt pocket or a jacket pocket. In addition to this form factor, I love the fact that it has JPEG film simulation recipes, highlight weighted metering, and the lens super sharp. But I would say sometimes it's almost too sharp, so I had to figure something out in order to kind of calm down that rendering so I can get a less clinical look. The solution that I found was being able to use a NISI adapter, which basically screws onto the front of the Ricoh GR3, and using a CineBloom adapter attached to it. So a CineBloom filter is a diffusion filter that adds halation and bloom to the highlights, and it affects the shadows a little bit. So I was using this filter in order to get a more natural looking feel, almost like a film-like feel to my photos, because I wanted to calm down that very sharp rendering of the standard lens. But because I had this adapter on it, it added to the size, and it kind of defeated the purpose of having a truly pocketable camera. And then Ricoh announced the Ricoh GR3 and the GR3X HDF, the highlight diffusion filter. The highlight diffusion filter from Ricoh is basically a built-in filter that you can toggle on and off in the camera. And it's a special effect filter that diffuses the highlight areas and creates a blurred effect along the image's edges of the highlights. And it makes it able to capture like what they describe nostalgic images resembling those captured in film photography and vintage movies. It's basically the reasoning why I used the CineBloom filter to begin with, except Ricoh decided to build it straight into the camera. I pre-ordered the camera as soon as it was announced. On paper, this camera was just going to be the perfect solution, right? But it wasn't exactly what I expected. If you're used to a black pro mist, a CineBloom filter, for a lot of scenes, the differences between with the filter and without the filter are actually super subtle. And I think that's because in comparison to say like a CineBloom filter, the filter does not affect the midtones and the shadows that much. On the CineBloom, it actually brings up the shadows and the midtones a little bit, almost warming it up a little bit and adding a little bit of fade. So I had to get used to not having that effect. It's something that I thought I was going to get and it didn't. Other times, the photos look almost too glowy, like they're almost like a mystical, dreamy glowiness instead of kind of like a flared out look that the CineBloom would give. It's almost just like only at the edges of the subject. And I'll be honest, I don't really like it. For those type of shots where there isn't a type of light source that's going to flare out the photo, it calms down the sharpness of the lens, which is something that I really like because when I'm taking photos of my family, mainly, which is what I do with this camera, it's going to smooth out the skin tones just a little bit because I think it was just too sharp for photos that weren't scenes, that weren't landscapes. It's a bit more stylized than the CineBloom. With the CineBloom, you realize that the quote-unquote like bloom radius, like how large it spreads out the light is pretty big, whereas the bloom radius on highlight diffusion filter on the Ricoh is a lot more narrow. And I didn't really understand why they did it this way. It's a lot different. And then when I shot this camera side by side with my film camera, the Fujifilm Class CW, and I looked at the scans and the halation characteristics of lights, I understood what they were going for. They were going for like a true film halation as opposed to adding this kind of like flared atmospheric effect. And once I made this realization, I just kept rocking with the camera, and I started to learn what looked good with the filter on and what didn't, so I could turn the filter off. But for most scenes that have a clear direction of light and a few speculars here and there, it just gave a look, had more clarity, yet that little bit of personality. Some people will like it and some people won't. It grew on me. So if you're on the fence about buying this camera, the biggest factor here is the price and the utility of the filter itself. So if you're not sure if it's worth the shift, if you already own like a GR3X or GR3, I don't consider it specifically an upgrade, but it's more like a lateral shift. So if you don't have a GR3X or GR3, then maybe you can go for it, as the usefulness of an ND filter isn't as always compelling for me. So you have to use your judgment on that. But it's ultimately up to you if you're okay with that price premium that they tacked on to it. It's like $100 more than the non-HDF version. But here's something to think about. If you're already planning to get a non-HDF version and use a CineBloom filter, which is like another 60, 70 bucks, plus a NISI adapter, which is another $20, you're like $20 difference from the HDF already. And you can retain the size advantage that makes the GR3X very special. And if you've been curious about if the HDF version has any type of weather sealing advantage, it doesn't. It is still at risk for getting dust spots, unfortunately, but I do have a solution for you. Today's video is sponsored by CineBloom. They are the creators of an incredible app called Luminar Neo. And this is an AI-powered image editor. And I know that might sound pretty futuristic and to some people a little bit scary. But what this means is that it brings some huge time-saving features and incredible functionality right to your fingertips. I know a common concern with the Ricoh system is the lack of weather sealing and the possibility of dust spots. So my GR3X HDF actually has a dust spot, but Luminar Neo has a feature to remedy this. With their Remove Dust Spots tool, you can actually remove dust spots and particles caused by dirt on your lens or your sensor with a single click. This tool uses AI to automatically remove the effects of the dust and debris, helping us to create better photos faster and more efficiently and without those annoying dust spots to kind of make us doubt the photo. Luminar Neo includes all the essential tools that you would expect in an image editor. So the color temperature, the exposure adjustments, the contrast, and more. But it also has some unique features like Sky AI, which automatically detects the sky in your photo, and it handles all the complex masking. And in here, you can add any sky you like and tweak it to perfection. So here I use this kind of blue sky with a little bit of clouds that's not as cloudy as the original photo, and you can tweak and shift it. You can reposition the clouds. It's pretty crazy that you can do this so quickly. I would have to say one of my favorite tools in Luminar Neo is the Enhance AI tool. And this tool automatically analyzes your image and instantly corrects it while still offering you final control over the amount of correction. So underneath the hood, this slider, the Accent AI slider, uses probably more than a dozen controls. It's incorporating like shadows, highlights, contrast, tone, saturation, exposure, details, all of this stuff with just a single slider. You can edit an entire photo with just sliding it over just a little bit and just tweaking it to where you find is just right, and you get pretty naturally beautiful results with just one slider. Using the JPEGs from the Ricohs and just this slider alone is going to get a lot more mileage than spending hours learning a photo editing software. That's going to take a little bit of time. So if you're there to try to get quick, impactful edits, this is probably the best slider to use. I'm really excited to have been introduced to CineBloom Luminar Neo and excited that they have sponsored this video. It's definitely going to be something that I use more often now that I'm in this JPEG workflow, and I'm looking for those quick, simple edits that are very impactful. We should empower everyone to take amazing images without having the barriers of complicated or time-consuming editing. So Luminar Neo fits perfectly into this mix, allowing for simple yet powerful edits to the JPEGs in just seconds. And the best part is that you can get a perpetual license with just a one-time payment and no need to worry about monthly subscriptions and all that fuss. If you want to try it out, check out the link below and use code REGGIE10 to get an extra 10% off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.